Hi, everyone. As we're just waiting for everybody to join, I just want to welcome you all to our talk, How to Prepare for Kilimanjaro. The way that we run things is your cameras and your microphones should be on mute, and that's just so that we don't have it too much cross chatter and then we kind of lose the thread of our presentation. Welcome everyone. We're just waiting for a few more people to join, and as we do that, I'll just let you know how we're going to run through this. We're going to start by just taking you through a very quick presentation that we put together on how to prepare for Kilimanjaro. It also includes a little bit of what the actual trip entails, and then from there we'll take your questions. Please feel free to put any of your questions into the comment section, where the message section, and then we'll just go through those as at the end of the presentation. So anything that comes to mind, just feel free to drop it in there. And if you don't feel like messaging the entire group, feel free to drop it to me or the person who is Eli on the chat, who's labeled as host for this meeting. So thank you very much for joining us. Kilimanjaro is one of those trips that I'm sure many of you already know. It's one of those life-changing experiences that are that really do. Yeah, people show up to that mountain feeling a certain way, and when they come off the mountain, something changes. And I've seen that on the 10 trips that I've personally done to that mountain. And I'm sure it has something to do with just the awesomeness of the experience and the place itself as well. So I'm going to jump straight into it so as not to waste too much time. And I'm just going to share my screen and hope the technology does not fail me. Here we go. Right. Okay, how to prepare for Kilimanjaro. So as you know, Kilimanjaro is one of the highest. It's the highest mountain on the African continent and considered one of the so-called 7 summits, which are the highest mountains on each continent. And as you can see, what's really interesting about this mountain is that it is right up on the equator. So unlike most alpine experiences, here we pass through 5 different ecological zones, environmental zones, starting all the way down to the bottom with the savanna plains, going through the rainforest, up through the short grass vegetation. We even pass through a desert, and we get all the way up to the glacier, the alpine, of course, and then the glaciers at the very top, as you can see. With Kilimanjaro, there's this idea that you have to be kind of somebody who's an athlete, and you're training, and yes, there is a degree of that. But what you'll see throughout this presentation is that there is no profile for summiting Kilimanjaro. There are going to be people who are super athletes who struggle, and you'll find people who hardly do, or at least don't look like they should be capable of doing it, having no trouble at all. And I'm going to explain a little bit as to why that is, and what really makes it, what kind of training regime, both mental and physical, make this mountain accessible for all of us. So here's just a quick mapping of the trail that we do. We choose the Machami route. We find, in our experience, it's the most scenic route, and it's the one that has the highest success rate. So we get a double whammy with this. I've actually been up all the routes, and I can say hands down that whenever I'm not on Machami route, I wish I was on Machami route. So Machami route, as you can see, it's not all about just going up. What we do is we go up from, so we start in the rainforest at the Machami gate, move up to Machami camp. Each one of these camps is a night that we're going to spend on the mountain. And then once we get to Shira camp, we're no longer going straight up, but we're actually start to go kind of sideways along the south flank of the crater until we reach Barafu on the far east side, and then we summit from the east side. And we choose this route because it also is great for acclimatization, which means that your body, it's a route that enables your body to adapt to the altitude in the most efficient way possible. And the way that we do that is, of course, to trek to an altitude and then go back down a little bit, sleep at a lower altitude, then trek up to an altitude, go down a little bit, and so on. And we find that this route is probably is actually the best one to properly acclimatize for this mountain. So I've broken this up into a few points, and I'm going to go through them one by one. The starting point for Kilimanjaro is that you have to want it. And what do I mean by that? Kilimanjaro is one of those places where if you don't want it for yourself, if you don't feel between you and yourself that this is something that you want, you're not going to see the point. You're not going to see the point in putting yourself through it. You're not going to see the point in even going through the training, let alone going through the mountain itself. So this has to, your starting point is that you have to want it. And in my experience, what I've seen is that people who want it, they'll do it. People who have kind of, or who are tagging along, you know, maybe friends have done it, maybe they're tagging along with a group of friends. Those are the people who struggle the most. And that's just because they don't see the point. So this is, you know, what I would say is your starting point is to look at the mountain, watch these, you know, there are lots of YouTube videos, just see if this is something that's calling you. And if it is, then you've got a solid leg to stand on. That's a great first step forward. Right. So the next thing is fitness starts obviously in the mind. So training yourself for Kilimanjaro, this is a continuation of wanting it. I always call Kilimanjaro a mind over matter game. And what that means is that as much training as you do, as much fitness as you have, the mountain is about we're spending long periods of time just walking and with ourselves. And when we are with ourselves and we don't have any distractions, our mind starts to play with us and starts to feed us this information that makes us feel like, okay, maybe I can't do this. Or we're sitting at the very bottom of the mountain, and we're looking all the way at the top, and we're thinking, how are we going to get all the way there? And the way to do that, and this is kind of a life lesson that the mountain itself has taught me, is to take it piecemeal. It's one step at a time. Today, it's about getting to Machami camp. Tomorrow will be about getting to Shira camp. And even before that, it's not about getting to the camp itself, it's about getting to lunch. And when we break them down into these small little objectives, our mind starts to drive us forward. And actually what happens is that we start to break these barriers that our mind builds up, because our bodies can do it. It's our mind that's telling us that our body can't do it. And a lot of the times on Kilimanjaro, what we actually see is people reach a certain point way before we get to summit night, where they start to break down a little bit, and you have these emotions, and it's because you thought you weren't going to be able to reach this point, and then you could, and so it is very much a game of mental strength, and that's something that's very important when you're assessing whether this is something you want to get yourself into. It's about mind over matter. Right. Preparing physically is subjective, but the general rule is it should be fun and sustainable. Right. So when you're preparing when you're putting together your fitness program, it depends. Each person is different, right? So some of us we already do a lot of swimming or running or whatever, and for us, we want to add a little extra kick because we're kind of we're moving towards this objective of Kilimanjaro. For others, maybe the first fitness experience you have is once you decide to go to Kilimanjaro. It doesn't mean that the person who's already doing the fitness is, better prepared to summit or will summit and you won't. That it's far from it. The best thing that you can do when you've decided to start with preparing for Kilimanjaro is to do things that you can incorporate into your life. So for example, start by walking, right? Instead of maybe if you live in a city where you take a bus or you take a car, maybe walk if you can. If you live in a city that has a beachfront, maybe swim, maybe walk along the sand a little bit. If you're somebody who likes to go and do classes, maybe incorporate a couple of extra classes more so than you would have done, and slowly make it sustainable. Because one of the things that Kilimanjaro, that's so interesting about this mountain, is that people come back from this, and it's not like we reached the objective and now we're going to sit back down and not do anything. It's a life-changing experience. So it would be great if anything that you do incorporate into your fitness program is something that you can easily fit into your life without disrupting it, because that means that you'll probably commit to it for longer. And also that you can sustain going forward. And maybe that can propel you into other things. So what we'd love to do is, if you have any one-on-one questions about specific things that we think you can do based on your training regime that you have currently, just reach out to us, and we'll talk to you about that on an individual basis. Right. This is my personal favorite one. Biceps won't help you walk, but a strong core will. And this is getting into more of the training itself. So people get excited about Kilimanjaro, and especially those of us who are a little bit younger. When we think of training, we think, okay, let's go and let's bench press, and let's do all sorts, the typical gym stuff. And actually, what you really need for Kilimanjaro, what you really need above everything else, is a core. And when I say core, I don't mean abs. I mean a strong core. And a strong core doesn't necessarily have to show. And the best exercises that I feel people can do for that are things like our static hold exercises. So things like the plank. Holding the plank is probably the best exercise you can do for Kilimanjaro, for as long as you can. And whenever you can. It's something, all you have to do the plank is just to drop down where you are, and and put your arms out in front of you, and just hold your core up for as long as you can. And if you pop plank into a Google search, you're going to get all kinds of variations that you can do. The reason why I say this is because the core is what holds it all together. So, and the one thing that we can't fix. So if you have sore muscles in your legs, we can sort that out. We can stretch them, and eventually they'll feel better. If your arms tire out, or your muscles feel a little bit tired from the pulls, that's fine. In a couple of days, or within 24 hours or 48 hours, the soreness goes away. But if you get a backache, that's a different thing. And that generally doesn't go away. And that's a sign of a very weak core. So for me, I think the single most important thing that people need to incorporate into their training program is something that's specific to the core. Whatever works for you. Doesn't have to be planks if you don't want it to be, but it should be core focused. And if you want to add anything extra, it'll be core and lower body. Nobody is going up to the summit by doing stuff like that. You can trust me on that one. Right. Mix up your routine, and don't forget cardio. Although we're not going to be running at any point on the mountain at all, actually our pace is extremely slow. We walk at a pace that enables us to carry out a conversation without losing our breath. That's how slow we walk on Kilimanjaro. And I'm sure you've heard the term pole pole before, which is the local colloquial slang of slow, slowly. But it is important for your bodies to get used to these stressful moments, because we do have some stressful moments where the heart rate does come up. And I don't mean that because we're going to be we're walking at a faster pace or anything, but there are going to be times where you're going to feel this is tiring, this is long. And the way to be able to, for your mind to be able to process that, is if your mind is used to some degree of cardio, because that's the same kind of feeling when you do cardio, and when you feel like, okay, this is a lot, I'm going somewhere. And it can be any cardio you want. It doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be swimming. It doesn't have to be anything. It's whatever you want. If it's spinning, wonderful. If it's Zumba, even better. If it's modern dance, whatever it is that you feel works for you, just try and incorporate it into your training regime moving forward. Right. So most people struggle because they bring the wrong gear. And this is one of those really important things. And it harks back to my own story when I first went to Kilimanjaro for the very first time. I was supplied with a poor gear list, but I'm not going to blame the gear list because I didn't read it anyway. So, and what ended up happening was that I suffered at night because my sleeping bag wasn't the right thing. And I also suffered because I didn't realize I had to bring a sleeping mat, which you don't have to bring with us. We supply the sleeping mats, but I'm just harking back to my own story. I brought cotton t-shirts like the one I'm wearing, which when they get wet from your own sweat, they don't dry up. And I didn't know that. So, and what I've seen as well with people who've joined us on our trips is that the people who don't read the gear list tend to bring the wrong stuff. And when they bring the wrong stuff, they really do suffer. And I can make, like, there's a very good example of that, which was just on our very last trip in March 2020. It was we had a wonderful person with us who was super going for it, and I had no doubt in my mind that that person was confident, comfortable, the whole works. And as the days went by, it became tougher and tougher and tougher on this person. And the reason why was because the sleeping bag that that the person brought was not the right one. And this person wasn't able to sleep as a result. And so gradually the energy was going down, 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 down. And then on summit night, we had a very tough time together. So just we supply a gear list that is comprehensive, and we also have numbers. So the number of things that you need to bring of each item. Make sure that you have them, because we update the list on a monthly basis. So it's, based on every single trip, that we can always improve it a little bit. And so we're always updating our list. So please be sure to read it carefully. And we also supply you with a jargon buster. So it's like a little more comprehensive. And it basically explains each item, what it is, so that when you go to the stores, you don't become a victim of upselling. And you know exactly what you want. And we're always available. If you ever need any advice on gear, you can always just get in touch with us by email or even WhatsApp us, and we'll give you some real-time advice. But don't skimp on this. And another thing that is the backpack. And actually, this picture was I chose it specifically for the backpack. You don't need a backpack this big. Actually, you need a backpack that's 30 liters, which is almost half, actually probably half of this backpack. And it should fit really well on your back. It should. So, and what I mean by that is that straps should be above your waist, and it should fit comfortably. It shouldn't feel like it's something that's heavy or pulling or knocking against your head. And because over 7 days, this can be very uncomfortable, and it can also start to cause backaches. So always super happy to advise on the backpacks. And as well, if you check out our gear list, we have quite a comprehensive solution on how to select your backpacks. Okay, this is going into some kind of controversial territory, if you like. You can't train for altitude without being at altitude. This is absolutely true. I'm going to quickly explain a little bit about altitude so that we understand what it is that we're talking about. As we go up higher into the atmosphere, the pressure of so pressure starts to decrease. And as pressure starts to decrease, what happens is that although at a high altitude, when I take a breath, I fill my lungs up with air the way I would down here, the saturation of the gases that I'm inhaling is less, because there's less pressure to push it all together. So and what that means for us as trekkers and as alpinists is that as we're going up into higher altitude, there's less and less oxygen being absorbed with every breath. The result of that is our bodies react in a way in which they start to produce more red blood cells, which is the body's response to the situation. And in order to take this less oxygen and deliver it as efficiently as possible to our vital organs and to the rest of our bodies. The process of producing these red blood cells and thereby getting used to altitude is called acclimatization. And acclimatization happens, as I said, by walking. We sleep. The trail itself, where we go up to altitude, we sleep at a lower altitude. We trek up to a higher altitude, we sleep slightly at a lower altitude, and this triggers our body to start to produce these more red blood cells. Crucially, for altitude, the key is to walk slowly, to drink a lot of water, and to eat very, very well, including when we don't have an appetite. There are all sorts of gimmicks and gadgets out there of altitude chambers, and you can wear this mask and it'll restrict the air from going in as you're training. That's all total nonsense for altitude. That mask does help for cardio. It might help for, fat burning or whatever. But when it comes to training your body for altitude, you cannot pre-train. The only thing that we can do with altitude is be at altitude. And the only way that we can ensure that we don't have any altitude-related illnesses is to walk slowly, to drink water, and to eat well. Right. Going on from that, forget everything the internet tells you about Diamox. So if you haven't heard of Diamox, then wonderful. But undoubtedly, if you commit to a trip like Kilimanjaro and you start to go through the internet, you're going to find debate upon debate upon debate about Diamox. I will tell you, let me start by saying that Diamox on our trips is strictly restricted to our guides who carry them, and it is only administered for evacuation down the mountain. We don't take Diamox to go up the mountain. Diamox, also known as apoacetazolamine, it was originally a medication used to treat an eye illness. And it was found to have a positive effect on people who are suffering symptoms of altitude sickness. The issue with Diamox is that Diamox does not help you acclimatize. Diamox treats the symptoms, which means that if you have a headache, which I need to know about and you need to know about, and it's masked by Diamox, then we're not going to know that you have altitude illness until you're in the late and severe stages of it. And that's extremely dangerous. We would much rather you be able to identify that you have some symptoms, or that we are able to identify on you that you have some symptoms of altitude, and then treat the causes, right? Then you taking medication that is masking the symptoms and preventing us from being able to treat the causes because we can't see the causes. So this is very important. A lot of outfits out there will tell you to take Diamox. Some people even tell you to take Diamox ahead of time. This is completely outdated science. Diamox is also a diuretic, and the number one cause of illness on the mountain is dehydration. It has nothing to do with altitude sickness. It's dehydration. And Diamox facilitates dehydration. So Diamox is something that will actually hurt more than help. Our team members, including myself, carry Diamox for emergencies to go down only. And we threw this into the presentation because a lot of we found that a lot of people start to take Diamox as a means of preparing for Kilimanjaro, which is absurd. But unfortunately, there's a lot of dumb science out there, and people do get hurt when they follow the chat groups of people just discussing what they heard in other places, and maybe they themselves are lucky that they didn't have any serious situation with it. Right, you climb what you eat, and this goes back down to dealing with altitude sickness. So I'm gonna split this into two parts. You have the part of this which is the dealing with altitude sickness on the mountain and the importance of eating, and the other part is what you should be doing before you come to the mountain. And so I'll start with the latter. Before you come to the mountain, it's best to eat as clean as possible. So I would avoid processed foods. I would avoid alcohol. I would avoid, the usual suspects. So, fried chicken, donuts, the likes, and try to go with food that is as clean and as lean as possible. And of course, getting your carbs. Carbs are extremely, extremely, extremely important for big treks because that's your energy storage. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, we're coming here and we also going to lose weight. Trust me, you are going to lose weight even if you have 10 plates of rice a day when you're actually on the mountain. Because part of the acclimatizing process is that our body is producing these red blood cells, as we spoke about. And what our body needs to produce red blood cells is energy. And if we don't have the energy, then we're going to start to go into our stores. And if we go into our stores, that's when we start to feel severe fatigue. And that's one of the early symptoms of altitude illness. So before getting to the mountain, it's very important that we eat well, as clean as possible, have our carbs, have our protein. There's, if you're a vegan, you'll know best how to do that. If you're a vegetarian, you'll know better as well. I personally, I'm an omnivore, so I do eat meat, and I do eat pastas, and I do eat rice. And before I come to the mountain, I make sure that especially in the last 2 weeks, I'm carb loading. So I'm eating a lot of pastas, a lot of rice, just to get my body ready for this experience. When we're on the mountain, it's extremely, extremely, extremely important to be eating, and especially eating your carbs. And we have a lot of that. The food that we supply on the mountain is actually really good. So, or at least better than you would expect. So, and we make sure that we have a lot of carbs. So you'll have rice, you'll have pasta, you'll have potatoes, you'll have different kinds of vegetables. And those are really, really important. Just to put it into perspective, on a typical day on Kilimanjaro, we will be burning upwards of 4,000 calories. It's usually between 4,000 and 5,000 calories per day, right? The average lady burns 2,000 calories per day during daily city life, and the average gentleman burns 2,500 calories in normal city life. So we're talking about double that, right? So it's very important to eat as much as you can so that your body feels strong. And if you have any questions about how best to incorporate the right nutritional regime into your own diet, please reach out to us and let us know, especially if you have specific concerns, whether if you're a vegan or a vegetarian or either pescatarian, or there's certain things that you don't eat or you can't eat. Do let us know, and we'll help you devise a program through our nutritionist, our dietitian rather, in-house dietitian who works with us on our program. So we'll be very happy to help you with that. Right. And finally, and most importantly, is beware of graduation goggles. Graduation goggles, what I mean by that is it's so common when after we do a climb like Kilimanjaro, that it's a big thing. It's a big deal. You probably will feel like you've gone to the edge of what you're possibly capable of doing, and you will feel like you've really had a major achievement. But then after the mountain is done, we start to add certain, let's call them creative devices that to help you kind of tell the story to your friends. And what was a extremely difficult and extremely life-changing experience quickly becomes something that is impossible for anybody else to do. And there are so many reasons why that happens. It can be because you kind of want to express it in the way that you feel is meaningful to you. But and I don't, it's a very honest thing to do, is to try and express yourself deeply and try to convey how it was that, what that experience meant to you. But there's also sometimes there's a degree of kind of, I can do it, but you can't. And we've kind of seen that a lot. And when you go out and you ask your friends about it, and or you go out online and you read about it, there you will find a lot of this kind of, okay, this is way out of my league. How am I going to do this? The truth is, anybody who wants to climb Kilimanjaro, who wants to trek Kilimanjaro, can. There is no technical aspect to this mountain whatsoever. It's a big trek. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's a big trek. So it takes us putting one foot in front of the other over varied terrain for several hours per day. And that's all it takes. If you can do that, you can reach the top. Everything else is detail. The altitude, the different environments, sleeping in a tent, all of that. You'll be so surprised how quickly your body will adapt when you're there. But like everything in life, when you're sitting down here, and you're thinking about it, that's the biggest challenge. It's getting over that hurdle. Once you put on your shoes, you put on your boots, and we're checked in, then we just start walking. And that's all it really is. And then we start chatting and getting to know each other and sharing an experience and having life-changing moments together. So I think the biggest hurdle for everybody is just kind of just say yes, kind of. But anybody who wants Kilimanjaro can. And if you're not sure if this is for you right now, do get in touch with us. And we will talk to you on an individual basis and help you. If it isn't right for you right now, we'll help you get you on your way to making it right for you in the very, very near future. Right. So our dates for Kilimanjaro in 2021 are the 19th of Feb to the 27th of Feb, the 27th of Feb to the 7th of March, and the 6th of March to the 14th of March. These are our confirmed 2021 dates. The first trip is the one that's filling up. It's almost full, but the other two are still okay. With our trips, the first day, which is the 19th, let's just use the first one as an example. The 19th means that's your arrival day. So that's the day you have to fly into Kilimanjaro International Airport. We pick you up from there and we take over. And then on the 27th, that's your departure date. So that's when you should fly out from Kilimanjaro Airport, and we drop you off at the airport for that date. We're currently running this is Kilimanjaro month for us. So we're running a promo that's running until the end of the month, and that's for 200 euros off on our Kilimanjaro trip. And as well, if you book before the 7th of September, we're only taking 100 euros as a deposit instead of the usual 20%. So our little way of getting everybody out there, and let's get the ball rolling, and let's get back out there and look forward again after a year that's been absolutely crazy, I think, for anyone the world over. I don't think anybody is going to look back at 2020 and think, gosh, that was the year that was awesome. But definitely we can start looking forward again. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to look into the questions that I've received over here very quickly. And if you have any other questions, please do feel free to send them through. So what I'll do is I'll just read it quickly, and then I'll paraphrase it so that everybody knows what I'm answering. Okay, so somebody's got has concerns about certain kinds of butterflies and moths in the rainforest. Right. So in the rainforest, yes, there are some butterflies. Actually, there aren't that many. You'll see, like, on the whole trek from the bottom to the top, we're likely going to see 3 or 4, and that's only if when we stop and we actually look into the bushes, because the trail itself is quite wide in the rainforest for the most part. So we're in the rainforest, but we're not really walking between the plants. Let's say, you will have about 3 to 4 meters of space at the beginning on either side of us, and then as we get a little bit higher, the trail will get a little bit more narrow, but at no point will we be kind of brushing up against anything that would be holding any butterflies won't be landing on you or landing on the plants that are right next to you. And once we get to the camp, there will be no more, because we actually get to the first night that we spend is actually on the very edge of the rainforest. So we're on the upper edge of the rainforest where it ends, and there are far fewer like animals or rather insects at that point. And then after that, once we've breached the rainforest, so for every other night, we're actually bugs are never an issue after that. So it's really just the first day. Once we get to the first night, we're past that. But yes, mental preparation for that if you must. So great. I've got another question here about medical checks during the trip. Yes, while we're doing the trip, we actually have a medical checkup every single day. So in the morning, we're going to check we'll ask you a series of questions, and then we'll also be checking your blood pressure and your oxygen levels to make sure that they're within the safe zone. And we'll be doing that every single morning of the trip. And all of the guides and assistant guides and myself, we all carry our first aid kits with us, and we're always able to assist if we need to, even in between if anything arises in between the two morning checkups. Right. So how early should we start training for Achilles specifically? That's a difficult question to answer, and it really comes down to you. What I would say is to do it gradually. So if let's say you choose to join us in February, I would say that starting next week or the week after, you can start to incorporate one extra thing that is Achilles specific. Maybe start to incorporate some planks. I'm very keen on the planks and having the strong core. So, or maybe talk to your PT or somebody at your gym who will be able to help you with core specific exercises that are better for you. So maybe incorporate that into your routine a little bit, and then maybe in a month's time, bring in another day of cardio, and just make sure that whatever you do bring in, it's something that you can continue to do. Because if I tell you right now, hey, you should be doing 5 days a week, you're going to burn out before November, and then you can do nothing until February, and then that's not how this is going to work. So I think the best thing for you to do is to incorporate things slowly. As you start to feel a little bit more confident, bring in a little something extra. So maybe in a month's time, start with a half an hour of extra Achilles specific trainings. I would focus on the core, and then maybe after a month of doing that, bring in some cardio that's a little bit more specific as well to something that you can do. And then as you start to get closer and closer, you can start to incorporate a little bit more as you're feeling comfortable, and as you feel like it's sustainable for you. Don't push yourself beyond what you feel is sustainable for you. The other thing I would say as well is it's really important that in the last 1 week before the trip to stop training. I don't want you to be showing up to the mountain sore from your trainings back in the gym. At that point, we don't care anymore. We need you to be 100% ready to go. So I would say a week before the trip, just stop training. Group size. Okay, that's a very, very easy one to answer. We take a maximum of 12 people in our group. We feel that that's a group size that's big enough in order for people to meet new people and have those, great relationships that so many people have on our trips. But it's also small enough so that you guys can all get individual attention from me and the rest of my team. What's the toilet situation, and will there be portable toilets or do we squat in the middle of nature? Right, neither. We used to have portable toilets. We've stopped that because the portable toilets are actually quite disgusting. They're actually just basically a bucket, and everybody poops in like with a chair, and it's its own tent. And it's something that and over time, the Kilimanjaro facilities at the base camps have improved so much that it's actually, people started to actually choose the facility toilets over the portable toilets. So we've actually opted to go with that. We do carry a portable toilet, but nobody ever uses it. We advise people, unless you absolutely have to, not to poop out in nature, because we want to preserve the environment. So, and especially in the higher altitude locations, the poop doesn't disappear in the rain or get absorbed by the soil. It actually freezes and stays there. So it's much better to use the facilities. Now, the toilet facilities are basically like they're tiled, but it's not a seated toilet. It's actually a hole, but it's very well kept. And it's quite clean, and you just squat over it and you don't have to touch anything. Experiencing the toilet situation in Kilimanjaro is part of the experience, and it was my main concern. And back then they didn't have these brand new modern toilets, and my team didn't have, when I first went, didn't have the portable toilets either. So we ended up with these wooden shacks that are still there. You can still see them, and it's better to see them and not use them is what I would say. But once you get past the first toilet, you'll be fine. Trust me. Do you treat your porters fair? Yes, I read a bit. Okay, that's wonderful. Yes, good question. So I've heard that there's a lot of exploitation. Yes, absolutely. So our porters and our guides that work with us are people who've been working with us since the very beginning. Actually, we've invested so much in them that we don't use anybody else. So it's not like a system where, whoever needs a job today, that's it. No. People who started with us as porters who are today lead guides, and Saidi is one of those people who you'll meet on. He's on every single one of our trips. He himself is a qualified lead guide, but he still stays with us as an assistant guide on our trip, just because because we invested in him when he was a porter, and actually he wasn't even a porter. He was a waiter for the mess tent that we set up, and he had a lot of potential. So we absolutely invest in our people. They are by no means exploited. They have their wages are above what is being paid, and the recommendation that we give to all of you in terms of tips is above what the normal recommendation is. And that's because our team, they're our family up there. I've been up there with them in some of the harshest conditions, and I've been up there with them in some of the most difficult moments. And they are, to me, their family. I spend more time with them than I do with my actual family. So absolutely not. And when you come there, you will see what they are like, and how they are like with us. And that's all because of the way that we are with them. So thank you for that question. That's very important. Right. What sort of weather can we expect in March? Okay. So end of March is the beginning of the rainy season. So beginning of April, end of March, the beginning of rainy season. So that's when things start to stop. So we stop our trips 2 weeks before the expected rains. So that's why we have those kind of back-to-back trips that go from February to mid-February to roughly mid-March. The weather is quite varied, so it can be like we can have days where it's I've had days in March where I'm in shorts and a t-shirt all the way up until Barafu, and then it's just the summit night where I had to put on all my other gear. And I've had days in March where it's rained quite miserably on certain days. And there is no way, or very few people will actually climb Kilimanjaro and not experience rain at some point, because even during the dry season, it will still rain in the rainforest. And that's because the rainforest rain isn't actually weather system, it's humidity. You get these humidity clouds that form at the base of the mountain. And then by midday, these clouds start to go up. So the higher we go, the less likely we're going to encounter rain. And usually rain happens on day 1, possibly day 2. And then after that, we're quite high enough to avoid them. But it does happen. And your gear list has everything that you need. So going back to the gear list, you have everything that you need in order to make sure that you have that you're able to go through all the different weather conditions, whether it's the severe equatorial sun at altitude, which is its own beast, or the tropical rains, which are quite famously a beast. So, but your gear list will have all the items to make it as comfortable as possible, so that we can pass through all of these things without having any issues whatsoever. I'm checking again to see if there are any other questions. I think we're kind of coming towards the end of the questions. So if anybody does have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We're always available to help you guys incorporate training. And when you join our trip, we actually provide you with a training program, which you can provide to your gym or your PT or your friends or whoever you feel you can rely on to help you start training. And that'll make it easy for them to understand what it is that you need to do in order to prepare. That's something that we provide once you sign up. We give you a nutrition guide and a fitness guide. These are 2 different things. The nutrition guide is a guide to what we think you should be starting to eat in preparation for the trip, and then what you should be focusing on with your food whilst on the trip. Notwithstanding the fact that we are actually providing you with the food. So when we're on the trip, so we already have our meal plan prepared in a way to make sure that you're getting what you need in terms of macronutrients. And also, and with the fitness guide as well, it's quite comprehensive, and so you can actually do that. Our guidebooks are also very comprehensive. It has all the details that you need. And if you have any questions at all at any time, please feel free to reach out to me or to anybody on the team, and we'll be very, very happy to assist you with that. We do have one last question here, which is about whether we do we do any summer 2021 trips. At the moment, we don't, although we have been known to bring in a June version of our Kilimanjaro trips. We've done it previously in June, but at the moment we haven't decided whether or not we're going to go ahead with that. If we do, we usually decide this closer to December time. At the moment, just because the schedule is so filled. Unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of what was supposed to happen in 2020 got pushed into 2021. So a lot of our projects that we had to all get kind of pushed together in order for us to accommodate 2 years in one. But we will do our best. And if that's something that you are interested in, please just drop an email to us at info@lifehappensoutdoors.com. And if we do go ahead with that, we will absolutely email you to let you know. And on that note, please don't forget that we're going to send you out an email. It's going to include this video as well as the promo code for this month, which you can use to get 200 euros off the entire trip. And also, if you book before the 7th of September, you benefit from only having to pay the 100 euro deposit instead of the usual 20% on the trip. Thank you guys so much for coming and for being a part of this. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I look forward to sharing this mountain with you. It's one of the most spectacular places on the planet. It changed my life, and it's my pleasure to go back and just see how it changes the lives of so many people who go up there. See you soon and have a wonderful day.